few weeks back on a 400 kilometre trip I was doing to Westmeath from Castletownbere in this Peugeot e-Partner 50 kilowatt van. I did a section of 50 kilometres on the motorway, and I did it at the limit of 120 kilometres an hour, and it really ate up the range. So I'm interested to see if throttling back a little bit and doing 100 kilometres an hour, which is plenty fast enough, you know, I'm ahead of the speed of any trucks that might be in the left-hand lane, and so I'm not going to hold anybody up. I'm going to set the speed limiter to 100 kilometres an hour. I've got about 75% of the battery left. It gives me 176 kilometre total estimate. I can accelerate up to the 100 and it'll just keep it there. A nice feature actually on this van, I quite like that. It's quite easy to flick it down when you're coming into towns. Stick it on 60 and then you don't watch your gauge through towns, you just keep a good average speed through them. So let's see what we can do at 100k. This has gone quite well. I've done 100 kilometers in an hour. I've still got 60 km or so of range left. So I'm going to take a top up shortly. It'll be interesting to see how quickly I can recharge and be ready to go again at this pace. In a recent video I said that I was being quite conservative of leaving quite a good bit of range in the van, so that I didn't run out, and I said maybe we should push it a little bit. Well, maybe now's the time, let's give it a shot. The range says 40 kilometers now. There's multiple charge points, I think there's about 4 or 5 of them on it, in about 30 kilometers. So let's get down to just 10 km of range instead of the usual 40 or 50 that I like to leave, or even 60. I'm going to continue going with the 100k thing, and so this is yeah, is this called range roulette, I wonder? Maybe. Let's see what we can do. It says just under a quarter on the gauge. Will I be calling a tow truck? Oh, here we've got some news. I've had a battery level low warning there with 30 kilometers left on the gauge. What's interesting is earlier on in the journey I was getting I was losing out against the estimate, and now I'm actually gaining a little bit. So when I made my calculation that I was going to go this far, it looked like the estimate would leave me with 10k, and now I'm looking like I'm going to end up with 12k. So I think the gauge gets a little pessimistic there at around the 25%. I've got a little orange dot now on the dash as well, just to make things a little bit more exciting. So I've got 15 kilometers to go. I've still got my foot down and we're doing the 100k, and let's see what happens. Another warning. Still holding 100k. 12 km on the sat nav to the charger, 26 km. So that looks like I've got 14 in reserve. So definitely a bit of a conflict between the analog gauge and the digital gauge. I hope. It'll be interesting to see at this charge point then, having gone this low, what speed it will charge from around 10% as it looks. As I said, the analog gauge is diving. The digital one still says I've got 24 kilometers. Hope I do. I hope it doesn't go into a limp mode before I get off the motorway. 22 km of range left, 8.3 km to the charger. Hope I set the sat nav right. Heard the warning. It is hard to keep the foot on the accelerator, you know, having driven the Leaf for years. You'd be backing off now and banking loads of range, but determined to keep this 100 kilometers an hour up. That's my exit, 2 km. There's the sign with the e-cars charge point. I wouldn't do this, you know, just in the normal driving. I said this is new vehicle to me, and this is an experiment to see what it can do. I've actually backed off because my junction is actually 500 meters and I'm behind 3 trucks, so I maintained the 100 anyway. Just till now. 16 km on the digital gauge. Looks very low. The needle is starting to rest on the bottom of the analog one. It's 1.6 km into the service station. There goes the bus. Luckily I'm not going to take that. I'm taking my exit. I just had the 4th warning there. The digital gauge has gone blank now. It doesn't want to report any more information. I would say we could freewheel from here. Might have to. There's a bit of regen there anyway. This should be enough to get me into the service station. We're in what I call the twilight zone in the Nissan Leaf, which kicks in at around 11%, I think. So there you go, there's a test with real jeopardy. I wouldn't have done this towards a single charge point either. There's multiples here at Monaster Evan. Maybe we'll get our first high power charge. Haven't seen anything above 60 kilowatts going into this yet. This side is the best one. This charge works. I'll show you the gauges.
There was absolutely no need to run the van down to zero like this, other than for curiosity and entertainment. I was passing charge points every 40 kilometres on this route, so it could have stopped much earlier. I suppose my practical conclusion from this is that charging the van to 80% as you would mid-journey, it can go 120 kilometres distance at 100 kilometres an hour, take about 25 minutes to charge back up to 80% before it starts to slow the charging down, ready to go another 120 km again, holding back a nice bit of range in case you encounter a queue or an issue with the charger. This obviously wouldn't suit a lot of people, but in addition to the van's very strong capabilities on round trips of about 200 kilometres from a base on rural roads, and I'm sure being very capable in an urban environment, the occasional long trip would be possible if you could accept those sort of brakes. If not, it might be better to wait for a future generation of more aerodynamic van, or consider an estate car if that could carry the loads you require to transport.